Los Angeles, California. With 13 million people and over 1,000 emergencies a day. It's often referred to as the local news capital of the world. Video journalists have captured an unbelievable catalog of events.
To see what our members had to endure is very difficult.
This is almost like a movie. It's hard to believe that this was real life.
With our first on-scene heroes' perspectives, this is an insight into their most thrilling moments. In this episode, a commuter's worst nightmare.
You got a double-length bus, half of it dangling over a bridge onto the road below.
A wanted suspect dives deep to escape.
Fugitives run from the police all the time, and they're going to do what it takes to get away.
And a tragic helicopter crash.
As this story broke, news networks were all over it. This made international news.
Los Angeles emergency operators receive over 1,300 calls every day. And first responders can never predict which seemingly mundane calls will turn out disastrous.
This was what looked like to be another cookie cutter type of an incident that we pride ourselves on mitigating on a routine basis. It started off as a routine incident, but then it accelerated very, very quickly.
This story's got to be one of the most visually scaring I've seen in years of doing this. This thing will go down in LA fire history.
To put out a burning warehouse, a group of firefighters are following the standard procedure of entering through the roof. There's no warning that what's about to happen will be on international news only hours later.
Going up to a roof is a routine aspect. To be able to cut a hole and punch through that hole, and then it releases all of this heat, the smoke, the gases, reduces the chance of flashover inside, which is deadly.
Firefighters are well trained, and they know when it's time to get out.
Shortly into those operations, the hairs on the back of some of our members and officers stood up. You started to hear some unusual sounds, some hissing or roaring type sounds. You saw the fire behavior change.
So we have people that are on the exterior, like the incident commander or a chief, that's giving commands saying, you guys need to come out right now, or we need you to get off the roof.
Unknown highly flammable sources suddenly explode at the ground level and rapidly engulf the entire building. They must work quickly to evacuate the building and come up with a new strategy to get the deadly situation under control.
We've got a massive explosion. We have multiple buildings on fire. We have 8 firefighters injured on the sidewalk.
The only way off that roof is through that blowtorch. And that's why we have 12 firefighters that were injured. To see what our members had to endure is very difficult.
It's so important to make sure that we always have our complete personal protective equipment from head to toe. There's a reason why.
But in a scenario like this, even the most fire-retardant protective gear didn't stand a chance.
I mean, you can see from that footage burnt fire helmets. I've never seen that in my life.
My heart goes out to them. What kind of burns did they get? I just can't imagine, and these men and women deserve all of the honor and respect we can possibly give to them.
The remaining firefighters get on with the job of bringing the blaze under control.
I've lost count how many times I've seen that video footage, and it's still not easy to look at.
There were 12 injuries, some serious. Luckily, no firefighters died.
It's a miracle that no one died in this horrific inferno, but it's a stark reminder that even the most routine incidents can blow out into catastrophic events that put firefighters' lives at risk. New York City, America's most populated urban center, and famous for being the city that never sleeps. It's 11 p.m. in the Bronx, and first responders have rushed to a shocking bus crash that has completely blocked 2 highways and left passengers' lives hanging in the balance.
You got a double-length bus with half of it dangling over a bridge onto the road below. Can you imagine being in the front of that out-of-control bus, knowing you're going to go over to the road below?
Your first initial thought is that there has to be a lot of injuries or possibly even someone could have died with this type of accident.
The first on-scene responders know they have to act fast to save the trapped passengers.
I don't even know where to begin to tell you all of the thoughts and considerations that go into emergency management of an incident like this. Has the freeway been shut down? Are there multiple other vehicles involved? Buses, people typically are not seatbelted in, therefore the forward traumatic injuries could be more substantial. A main concern is stabilizing the bus so they don't get more injured and the first responders don't become patients themselves.
I think there were a lot of people on board, so you have to wonder, this would be a mass casualty incident. In my case, when I covered a story similar to this, there were multiple deaths, and so you have to really be cautious with how you're going to cover this because family members are so upset when they get to the scene. You want to keep your distance and be as respectful as possible.
There was a couple passengers laid out on the highway beside the bus.
You mentioned laid out. What was their condition?
It looked like they were alive. It looked good.
When I came, they already were taking out people in the ambulance, but we don't know if the bus driver is dead.
News reports had mentioned that there were 7 minor injuries. However, the driver was seriously injured.
And how this did not result in many, many, many deaths, I don't know.
Coming up, a wanted suspect makes a big splash.
So what did he do? He went and jumped in a lake. That's one way of trying to get away from the police, right?
But first, a high-speed crash ends in a tight spot.
I personally have never witnessed a car squashed under a bridge like that.
Los Angeles is now the car crash capital of the United States. Severe road injuries and fatalities have increased by over 30% in the last 2 years.
This crash here, where do you start with it?
It's 3 a.m. in Boyle Heights, just south of downtown Los Angeles, and emergency workers are responding to a trapped motorist.
Officers responded on scene to find a vehicle stuck between the overpass and the concrete below.
The car is wedged so tightly under the bridge that firefighters can't even stand as they desperately work to free the wreck.
I personally have never witnessed a car squashed under a bridge like that.
It was dark. It's quite possible the driver fell asleep, was impaired, or just didn't see the turn coming. Perhaps they were going too fast.
But to come around that corner and fly straight off the freeway underneath the bridge at high speed and make that car like a pancake, he must have been doing in excess of 100 miles per hour.
Firefighters must quickly and safely access the crashed vehicle to have any hope of helping the trapped driver.
Fire personnel had to use the jaws of life to try to open the door, extract the driver, who was still inside.
We use our hydraulic cutting and prying tools that we connect with hose lines to a gas-powered generator that pushes that hydraulic fluid into the end tool. So in this case, the spreaders did an excellent job. They're able to get in there, open it up well enough. We're able to make visualization of the driver, a single occupant, inside the vehicle, tragically beyond any medical help, and therefore determined dead on scene.
The firefighters' mission becomes a recovery operation to remove the deceased driver from the vehicle.
Well, this is a tragic incident.
Speed is often the leading cause of injury and death with automobiles.
Two hours south in sunny San Diego, an armed suspect wanted for an alleged assault is on the run, and the Fugitive Task Force are hot on his tail.
So this suspect was originally wanted for assault on a police officer. So the Fugitive Task Force went to arrest him early in the morning, and he decided he didn't want to hang around, so he ran. And kept running and running and running. I didn't actually shoot this story, but I know the cameraman that did it, and it was a hard one to shoot. Anytime you've got a suspect on the loose on foot, it's dangerous. I mean, they don't know whether he has a weapon. He could have a gun in his pants. He could have a knife on him. I mean, it changes the game. You've gone from a normal story now to something where you've got to watch your back. You've got a suspect on the loose, and you're there filming him. I mean, it could be a recipe for disaster.
Police have brought in the canine units and close in slowly on the dangerous suspect as he becomes more and more desperate for a means of escape.
Fugitives run from the police all the time because they don't want to go back to jail or prison, and they're going to do what it takes to get away.
In a last-ditch effort at evading the police, the suspect jumps into a nearby lake.
That's one way of trying to get away from the police, right? And the point he gets into that lake, the situation changes for the police department.
The police officers weren't going to go in and go after him, which would not be a safe thing for us to do.
In the water, it's going to make it extremely hard for them to see if he has a weapon on him. The guy could have a gun on him, he could have a knife on him. I mean, it's a tricky situation for them.
They try setting up a perimeter around him, which is difficult in an open space because he can just keep going from edge to edge.
Eventually, the suspect was going to tire himself out, walking through the water and going up the embankment.
The police have their dog ready.
Coming up.
Canines are an effective weapon when going against individuals who are in difficult places to reach.
It's 8:30 a.m. in San Diego, California, and police task force is in pursuit of a man who they suspect is armed.
At some point, he starts swimming across the water.
In the water, it's going to make it extremely hard for them to see if he has a weapon on him.
Eventually, the suspect was going to tire himself out.
And the police have their dog ready.
Canines are an effective weapon when going against individuals who are in difficult places to reach.
The man attempts to get onto dry land, but the canine officer has him cornered.
The dog makes connection.
However, the suspect began assaulting the dog.
The suspect pulls out a weapon and starts smacking the dog in the head. That weapon turned out to be a screwdriver. Now, you have to remember, this is not a normal dog. This is a fully trained police officer. So he's attacking that dog. Essentially, he's attacking a police officer.
The individual would be charged with assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer, which carries a felony charge.
So they're going to bring that dog back. They're not going to risk that dog's life at the hands of this violent suspect.
Fortunately, the dog was not injured.
Not wanting to risk the canine officer's safety, the police officers used non-lethal beanbag rounds to subdue the suspect.
They're using a beanbag round. I mean, that's still gonna hurt, and that's gonna get you to really think, you know, don't be stupid.
Despite announcing his surrender, the suspect moves away from the officers further into the scrub. With his guitar in hand, he wades into deeper waters, still attempting to escape.
He gets out the lake, gets a guitar, takes the guitar swimming. I mean, what's he gonna do? Serenade the cops? I mean, it's just strange. I mean, this suspect's really stubborn. I mean, the cold water didn't stop him. The canine didn't stop him. The less lethal rounds didn't stop him. It took a taser to get this guy out.
At one point, he exited the riverbed and tried to flee. An officer deployed a taser, and that successfully contacted him and got the neuromuscular incapacitation necessary to take him into custody.
The suspect was taken into custody by police and treated for his injuries.
The courageous canine officer is taken to a local vet for a checkup and is expected to make a full recovery. Just northwest of downtown Los Angeles is Encino. Because this suburb is surrounded by national parks and all kinds of wildlife, the residents are no strangers to unexpected visitors.
A lot of residential neighborhoods back up to areas that are mountainous and that have a lot of wildlife, so it's actually very common to see bears and deer and all kinds of sorts of animals and wildlife wind up in the pools.
As common as wildlife sightings near homes can be, it's uncommon for animals to be caught using the amenities.
Somehow the deer ended up in the swimming pool.
Yeah, I bet the family wasn't expecting that. That's definitely a sight to see.
He's not gonna get out while you're standing.
No, I understand.
Sometimes the animals can get very distressed.
It appeared as though the people that lived there really wanted to engage and help the deer.
You don't know what they're capable of. If you try to help them, they could possibly harm you or hurt you because they don't understand and they just want out. Sometimes it's better to just wait for a professional to come and try and help that animal get out.
The deer manages to climb out by itself just as wildlife officers arrive.
Let me give you a telephone number you can call. It's California Wildlife. It's a private, non-profit. Rehabilitators.
Happy ending.
Coming up, a headline-making helicopter crash.
This made international news.
I'm rolling into what I can see as a hillside on fire. At this point, I didn't know the extent of the story I'd be filming that morning.
It's a foggy morning in the affluent neighborhood of Calabasas, northeast of Los Angeles, and reports are coming in of an aircraft crash on the side of a hill. It turns out to be a helicopter.
Whenever you hear a call of a helicopter down in Los Angeles, you know it's going to be bad. And this helicopter made international news. I personally have never experienced shooting a story like this. I've shot a lot of stories throughout my career, but nothing to this level.
So this was a weekend back in the beginning of 2020. I woke up, I had an alert on my phone that said aircraft crash. At this point, I didn't know the extent of the story I'd be filming that morning.
Howard lives close to the crash site. He rushes to Calabasas to cover the breaking story.
It's one exit down the freeway from where I live. And as I'm getting off the freeway, I'm being passed by highway patrol. I can hear sirens, fire trucks. I'm rolling into what I can see is a hillside on fire.
We were coming up the trail, and we just heard a helicopter go way low. There was way more fog than this. And then as we round the corner, we just saw a massive debris field. And then these two guys,
huge fireball.
These two guys saw it, and they're like, "Don't come any further."
Debris everywhere.
I was able to get pretty close to it. So I take my camera, I set it on a tripod, and I zoom right in, and I realize it's a helicopter. I know I have a good story. I'm filming it, it's an aircraft crash. Stations are gonna take their time to get to where I live. I mean, that area is not close to any TV stations. So right now I have the exclusive. I start putting my story together, I'm piecing it together in my car, and I get a phone call from someone who's monitoring the radios, and they said 9 DOA. DOA means dead on arrival. Then I get another phone call. And that phone call is someone who's frantically telling me it's Kobe Bryant. And I'm speechless.
The Lakers basketball star was on his way to Camarillo with his daughter to a basketball academy when the pilot struck bad weather coming over the mountains of Calabasas, and the helicopter fell out of the sky and plowed into the side of the mountain.
So I covered this story. I was actually covering the red carpet at the Grammys when we heard that not only was this a deadly helicopter crash, but the legend, Kobe Bryant, and his daughter, and others, all passed away.
The loss of Kobe Bryant cut deep among everyone in America.
I was speaking to someone and they said they'd cycled past when the helicopter had crashed. And I remember telling him, "Do you know who it was?" And he's putting his bike back on the rack in the back of his car. And I said it was Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it. That's horrible.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah, my brother loved it.
That was crazy.
Oh, my God.
Whenever there's a celebrity involved, it becomes a massive story. And living in Los Angeles, you felt that story.
I just can't believe that. I mean, I'm just so sad for the family. I mean, that's the worst part. I mean, just, oh my God.
This is a heartbreaking thing to watch. Someone that made such an impact on so many people's lives, gone in an instant.
The rotor or whatever, it was making kind of some kind of weird sound. And you could tell where it hit the side of the hill, slid across, and then blew up on the bike path, like literally on the bike trail. And yeah.
He did so much for the community and for girls who played basketball, and he was just this devoted father. So, you know, and then of course what he did on the court, it was unbelievable.
It's astonishing. I mean, to have that amount of effect on people just goes to show what kind of man he was. It turns out that this crash may have been pilot error. I mean, the morning of the crash, I noticed how foggy it was, and I wouldn't want to be up there in a helicopter flying around in that. And to have pilot error take away that many lives, I mean, it shouldn't have happened, really. It just shouldn't have happened.